my family, all the Israelites that are scattered in the four corners of the earth, according to our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and according to the prophecies of Deuteronomy 28, verse 68, and Isaiah 11, verse 11. I want to say blessed. And I'd like to start off with a script. I know it's been a while, but it's a fight, family. It's a fight, but we're still here, so we give thanks to our God, God of Jacob, the God of Isaac, and the God of Abraham, Yahweh, and his son, who continuously show mercy to us, Yahweh Shai. And I would like to read from Christ's word, Revelation chapter 1, verse 3. I'd like to start here for a reason. And it says, Blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein. For the time is at hand. Blessed. So, the reason why I started there is also to preference it with this video on our Israelite brother Judah, right? I'd like to give some credit to Jamal and his law firm here, Fair Use. Again, I'm taking this video from that is published, so I want to say fair use and to also give credit to Jamal and his law firm. Listen up.
Were you one of those kids who didn't like to study and hated going to school? Well, guess what? There was a time when it was illegal to educate yourself. Just imagine getting fined, imprisoned, or even getting your fingers cut off simply because you were reading or owned a book. Well, this law didn't apply to everyone. It specifically was applied to Black people during the antebellum period. I know you're gonna get something out of this, so before moving any further, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and please turn on notifications so you never miss a new video when it drops. Now let's get the video started. Many slave states made it illegal for Blacks to learn to read or write during the antebellum period, which spanned from 1815 to 1861. Today, you wouldn't even think twice before reading or buying a book, but at that time it was considered one of the highest grade crimes. Violation of this law meant being whipped or brutally beaten. Some even had fingers or toes cut off. Many states imposed fines, which slaves obviously couldn't afford, so some went to jail for up to 6 months. I know this sounds completely absurd, and you must be thinking, what harm could reading do that America had to go to such an extreme level? Well, slavery in and of itself was despicably absurd and inhumane. But there were some major reasons behind these anti-literacy laws. Let me break it down for you. Whites never wanted Black people to be on their level, let alone be superior to them. White people justified slavery based on perceived economic necessity, their racist views, and warped biblical interpretations, among other things. White people knew that once Black people got educated, they would challenge the justification of their enslavement. Their whole agenda was to keep slaves from becoming leaders, organizing, and revolting. It's pretty clear from all this that these white people never imagined freeing the slaves, and to support their agenda, they did everything they possibly could to ensure Black people stayed ignorant and hoped that they'd remain slaves forever. Little did they know that wasn't going to happen, because tyranny is never everlasting, and the slaves were meant to fight for their freedom sooner or later. Anti-literacy laws also arose from the concerns that slaves who could read and write could forge the documents required to escape to a free state. So fear of the slaves achieving freedom was a driving force behind these savage laws. According to Berkeley professor William M. Banks, many slaves who learned to write actually achieved freedom in this way. While these slaves used trickery to liberate themselves, others resorted to brute violence. In 1831, Nat Turner, a literate slave, led a rebellion resulting in the killing of around 55 whites. The revolt set off a massacre of up to 200 black people and a new wave of oppressive
Fair
legislation
use.
prohibiting the education, movement, and assembly of slaves. Virginia declared illegal any meetings to teach free African Americans to read or write. In Georgia, they had gone so far as to restrict blacks from getting jobs related to reading and writing. That's how afraid they were of revolution. And we can see that by the fact that the United States is the only country to ever instate.
So very interesting that they will go to so much length to avoid our forefathers and foremothers from learning how to read and write. But I would also preference this by saying during the entire transatlantic slave trade and the Spanish Inquisition, which was prior to the transatlantic, they didn't take a lot of so-called illiterate people or savages. These were highly skilled, highly educated people, our ancestors that they took, right? But the reason why I started with Revelation 1 verse 3, blessed is he or she that readeth, is because we're living in an era, right? We're living in this modern time where information is there like the water, right? Water covers most of this earth. So to try to wake up the Israelite, I'm trying to do my part, right? And I'll state again from when we first started this dive into our history, the Jamaican Israelite heritage, our true heritage. We're not Jamaicans, neither are we black, right? We're not Negroes. We're the Israelite. We're from the house of David specifically, right? There's so many material, but the primary source, again, is our book, our Bible. And I'll read from the book of Isaiah, chapter 29, verse 15. And it states, woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord, and their works are in the dark. And they say, who seeth us? And who knoweth us? Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as a potter's clay. For shall the work say of him that made it, he made me not? Or shall the things framed say of him that frame it, he has no understanding? Now, we know that there's nothing hidden that shall not be revealed. And this is very present in this current dispensation, Israel. So please just pay attention to what I'm going to show you right now, right? And I'm going back to one of my earlier presentation. Try not to rush through this learning, right? Fair use. Again, so Jamaican Israelite heritage, and again, our history back on Jamrock didn't start with the British. It started with the Spaniards. Again, it started with the Spaniards and the Portuguese. Everyone knows that, who should know in Jamaica. Our first capital was Spanish Town, and not where it's currently located. And we'll get into that in future videos, Jah willing, right? But again, let me, for those who are new to the channel, let me explain some of these key terms that's going to make sense later, right? What does the word maroon mean? And we're taking this from the Webster dictionary. That's basic, right? it's skewed in a lot of different areas, but I saw that it made sense to what we're going over right here. And a maroon is to be put ashore on a desolated island or coast and to leave to one's own fate. To place or leave in isolation or without hope or ready escape, right? And we'll go down to some plural meaning. We just looked at some verbs. A person who is marooned, and it says right here, a black person. And we know black is a color out of a crayon box, right? But we could take the word that they call us black and know it's talking about some type of melanated person, right? Let's use the word African in this case. We're not really African as well. And we'll refer and reference Africa as Zion because that's where the homeland is, right? It says a black person of the West Indies and Guyana in the 17th and 18th century who escaped slavery. Very important. So a maroon is a black person that escaped slavery. And we are the descendant of such a person, right? And to the right, the image Cape Verde, Sao Tome Islands off the west coast of Africa. And subsequently, we didn't stay on these islands. We went in to the mainland of Zion, right? But we'll get into that in later videos as well. And now, who was Pope Nicholas V of Rome? He enacted the papal bull. He enacted the law to enslave so-called Africans, right? But from where? Within early Iberian colonies. So the word Iberian, please pay close attention to that word, the word Iberian. And it's given a lot of history about the Congo as well. So you could pause the video and reference back to what it's saying if you're new to the channel, right? And Isaiah the prophet prophesied through the Most High words that was given to him what was going to happen to us, the Israelites, northern kingdom as well as the southern kingdom, right? And there was a divide in the kingdom during Solomon's time after his death. So here's the main part of why I'm doing this video. Again, Jamaican Israelite heritage. This article researching again our real history, and I decided to type in Afro-Jamaicans just because they like to refer to us as Africans. But Africa is a big continent and it wasn't called Africa from the beginning. And I'll show you that as well, right? But it states right here, Afro-Jamaicans are Jamaicans of predominant sub-Saharan African descent. They represent the largest ethnic group in the country. Most Jamaicans are mixed race descent, self-reported as just Jamaicans. So we know that's not correct. 99% of the population is so-called black people, right? And it even tells you right here, they say 91, I'll say 99, right? And then they're saying 15.1% are Afro-Europeans. But let's go back to the article itself, and this is the most important part. The ethnogenesis of the black Jamaican people stemmed from the Atlantic slave trade of the 16th century, when enslaved Africans were transported as slaves to Jamaica and other parts of the Americas. So that's North America, South and Central America, the entire Caribbean, and so forth. That's considered the Americas. Very important, the highlighted portion, right? And this is why I read for you Revelation 1 verse 3 and Isaiah 29 verse 15, because this is what they're trying to hide from you so-called Jamaicans. So listen up. The first Africans to arrive in Jamaica came in 1513 from the Iberian Peninsula. This is facts, right? This is not uh, me reaching, or it's not skepticism. This is not fable. This is facts, right? How do we know that? When the English invaded Jamaica in 1655, so this is a different group of colonizers, right? Imperialists that came upon the Israelites in 1655. But it just stated the first Africans, which were not really Africans, to arrive in Jamaica came in 1513 from the Iberian Peninsula. We're going to find out where the Iberian Peninsula is, if you don't know already. When the English invaded Jamaica in 1655, many of them fought with their Spanish masters. And that's the Iberian Peninsula consists of Spain, which are the Spaniards, and Portugal, so-called Portuguese, right? Who gave them their freedom. So we made uh, a covenant, so to speak. We chose side with the Spaniards because the Spaniards were fighting against the English at this time. They weren't confederate together yet. They were fighting to see who's going to control the world. And because they couldn't contain us, right? They made a pact with us and say, help us fight against these new invaders, right? The English invaded Jamaica in 1655, and not just Jamaica, the entire Caribbean, right? But I'm gonna start with the Jamaican and subsequently Barbadians, St. Lucians, Guyananians, all of our brother and sister in the Caribbean. This is related to every single one of you. Pay attention. Many of them fought with the Spaniard masters who gave them their freedom and then fled to the mountains, resisting the English colonial administration for decades, becoming known as the Maroon. And I already explained what a Maroon is, and this article is trying to articulate what a Maroon is. So we know the Maroons were fighting against the Spaniards, right? As soon as we landed in 1513, and subsequently we're fighting against the next colonizer, which are the British. So the Spanish first enslaved us because why? We're coming from the original so-called Jamaicans, didn't come from the main continent of Zion, which is Africa, but we were living at this time in Europe, in Spain and Portugal, right? That's why they're taking the so-called Africans from the Iberian Peninsula in 1513. So let's find out where the Iberian Peninsula is and pay attention to that date, 1513. So who was living in the Iberian Peninsula? And the subject matter is Spanish and Portuguese Jews, right? And we'll read the highlighted portion. Spanish and Portuguese Jews, also called Western Sephardic, Iberian Jews, or Peninsula Jews, are a distinctive subgroup of Sephardic Jews. That's who Jamaicans are. That's what's in our blood. Sephardic means a priestly type. It means they who were zealous for the laws and still are, right? A lot of us is getting lost right now because the trick of the devil in Jamaica. Whole heap of man talk about gozo and a talk about bare foolishness. But we're going to get into that. And these are all prophecy. It's all prophesied. It's not just now it's happening in Jamaica. It's been happening in Israel from ancient of times. Distinctive subgroup of Sephardic Jews who are largely descendant from Jews who lived as new Christian, very important, in the Iberian Peninsula during the immediate generation following the forced, that means we didn't willingly accept being whatever the new Christian is, which we're going to find out. We were forced, right? The forced expulsion of unconverted Jews from Spain in 1419 and from Portugal in 1497. So we know that 1513 is not far removed from 1492 as well as 1497, right? Less than 20 years. All right, so we know who was living in Portugal and Spain at this time were the Sephardic Jews. And I'm contending with factual evidence, which I'm going to present further, that the so-called Jamaicans are the Sephardic Jews, but not only them, our brothers and sisters scattered in Haiti, in Barbados, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Lucia, St. Kitts, all over the Caribbean, on, and not just there, in South, Central America, and the Americas, right? Now, the reason why I'm making this video, because I originally made this video with this important highlighted portion right on the top that mentioned the so-called Africans to arrive in Jamaica came in 1513. And I recently Googled again, doing research, Afro-Jamaicans, and to my surprise, well, not really surprised, because I read for you Isaiah 29, but the enemy is paying attention to what I'm saying, and they subsequently went, not just me, right? Other people is professing this, other Israelites, so-called Negroes, are professing that we are the Jews. Some of us, our landmass, of course, is Zion, Africa, but a lot of us were living outside of Zion in Portugal and Spain. The house of David was found there, right? So when I recently Googled this, the same article, Afro-Jamaican, guess what is missing? The most important part that mentioned the so-called first set of slaves, which are the Maroons, who ran into the mountain of St. Elizabeth, St. Thomas, all over Westmoreland, all over Jamaica, the Ashantis, what you call them, the Igbos, the Congolese, all these Israelites that ran into the mountains. Guess what? They took that main portion out. I wonder why. Why remove the most important part of the text? And can you see for yourself? I'm speaking to the Israelite. Can you guys see for yourself why they would do that? Right? And it's a rhetorical question, because I know you guys know the answer. Right? But they want to continue Jamaican in a state of being lost. Right? And again, we're going to discuss the main tribes that trace their lineages, trace their oral history and written history back to the tribes of the 12 sons of Jacob, which are the Israelite. The Akan, right, traces their lineages back to Israel. The Igbos, the Yorubas, and the Congo lineages are Congo. Very important, right? And these are the main tribes that make up the population of so-called Jamaicans right now, right? So, in conclusion, on this slide presentation, I'm asking the question again. The first Africans, quote unquote, brought to Jamaica as slaves came from where? They came from the Iberian Peninsula. That is that green patch that's connected to Morocco, the Rock of Gibraltar, that I spoke about in an earlier video. Very close to Africa. And Hannibal defeated Rome in the Second Punic War, right? And subsequently, Rome defeated Hannibal. Hannibal was an Israelite, right, from the tribe of Judah. And we could prove that with many great scholars and with my general and the teaching that is gone out in the earth. It's unstoppable, right? The second bullet point is the Iberian Peninsula was mostly dominated by who before Rome? And the answer is Sephardic Jews, so-called Africans, quote unquote, right? But there weren't Africans. They were just mentioned as being black people, right? And it's 1513, far removed from 1497. The answer is no, less than 20 years, right? And we already answered the last bullet point, or the fourth one, which is where's the Iberian Peninsula? Portugal and Spain is considered the Iberian Peninsula and is connected to Morocco, right, off North Africa, right? So let me escape out of this and minimize this, right? And there's a video that I want to share. Share this video. And we'll dissect this video. The reason why I'm going over this again is the hijack, right? Is someone trying to supplant us, but the truth shall reveal itself. Pay attention.
And you know, there's a lot of people.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, Apostle, you have some question for the
I
brother.
do have a question for you. I'm so glad you're here because you can bring great clarity. Can you tell us a little bit about the Sephardic Jews and how they were scattered because they went west?
I sure can.
Because the reason why I want to is because a lot of them, and a lot of people don't know this, are in the Caribbean.
They are.
In the islands. I
And
know
you're
that.
one of them. I
And
know
I'm
that.
one of them.
I know that.
Because, you know, a lot of folk don't know that those roots are there. One of the first batches of slaves that came to Jamaica, they were the Sephardic Jews. It's documented.
And they're all over the
And they're all over
Caribbean,
the Caribbean.
South America, Central America, and even the South Central United States.
Wow.
And DNA testing is a factor in all this now. So what happened is, as the Jews were scattered, primarily after the destruction of the temple by the Romans and then the final revolt, they wandered into around the world and essentially became two groups. What we call the Ashkenazi Jews, they settled in Eastern Europe and were banished from country to country, but Eastern Europe traditions and customs and features, physical features. And then the Spanish speak Jews that settled in Spain and the surrounding areas, they became known as the Sephardic, which is Spanish. And there was a huge Jewish community in Spain and in Portugal. And in 1492, through the Spanish Inquisition, they were forced to leave Spain, either convert to Christianity or leave Spain. They were banished. And then a few years later, the Jews of Portugal, another huge Jewish population, was banished. And then many of them went west and settled in the Caribbean, settled in Central America and South America, and even the southern United States, southwestern United States. And they're now being recovered a few ways. One, the family traditions. We know we're Jewish. We changed our name, but we're still Jews. We've converted to Christianity on the outside, but inside we're still Jews. And
So I hope you are paying attention right? Why didn't this so-called rabbi mention the characteristic of the so-called Sephardic Jews? He mentioned the Ashkenazi, right? He mentioned the characteristics of the Ashkenazi. He said they were Europeans. He said they had physical traits of his people, which claim they are the Jewish people, right? Which is fine. You can be Jewish. But why didn't he describe or give a characteristic description of the Sephardic Jews, right? Because the brother next to him, the Israelite, that mentioned that his foreparents were brought as slaves to Jamaica and they're from the Iberian Peninsula, were Sephardic Jews. And I'm going to read for you. This is one of the books I already mentioned in previous videos, right? This is called Nature Knows No Color Line, right? Nature Knows No Color Line. And this is by J.A. Rogers, a so-called Jamaican, which is an Israelite. And he immigrated to the United States a while back ago, right? But grace be to the Almighty, our ancestor J.A. Rogers, right, were able to travel around the world and gather certain pertinent information that is very important in this time, right? So part of the research on his book, page 123, Negro ancestry, right, in the white race, right? Let's start where it says ways. Ways says an interesting gradation of all shades down to the black is exhibited by the Jews, especially dark were the Jews of Spain and Portugal. The Portuguese Jews were very dark, says Pritchard. The Duchess of Abrantes, wife of Napoleon, ambassador to Portugal, said that the Jews, the Negro, and the Portuguese could be seen in a single person. That means the Israelites, all 12, were always black and will always be black, right? If you want to reference it to a color, we're not black, we're different shades of brown. But I'm just highlighting what these elites know, that the Israelites are still lost though, right? And in highlighted portion, the dark, so dark were the Jews, especially of Portugal and southern Spain, that many whites thought all Jews were black or dark, right? And this hasn't changed, right? This belief, said Barbot, shows what an error most people are in, since he says the German Jews, and this is what the so-called rabbi said earlier about the Ashkenazi, right? And we know German Jews are from the grandson, Genesis 10, of Ashkenazi. So the German Jews, as for example, those of Prague, are as white as most of their German countrymen. And that is the distinction between the real Israelites and what I'm going to read next, right? Let's see who these German Jews are. And these again are some scholarly books. I didn't write them, but the history is there. And this book is called The Jewish Encyclopedia, Volume 4. Right? And we'll start right on the second paragraph. In the second half of the 6th century, the Khazars moved westward. They established themselves in a territory bound by the Sea of Azov, the Don, and the lower Volga. Right? So we're not going to read any further. We're going to jump down in the page, but pay close attention. In the second half of the 6th century, the Khazars moved westward. Westward meaning they had to have been on the east first, right? And now they're moving westwards. So let's scroll down and see what happened after they're moving westward. Let's start right here. In 679, the Khazars subjugated the Bulgars and extended their sway further west between the Don and the Dnieper as far as the headwaters of Donetsk in the province of Libinia, right? And we'll start again here. It was probably about that time that Chagan of the Khazar and his grandees, together with a large number of his brethren, that doesn't say brethren, large number of the heathens. Let's read that properly. It was probably about the time that Chagan, I'm not sure why this portion they're trying to disguise it, right? Of the Khazar and his grandees, together with a large number of his heathen people, embraced the Jewish religion. According to A. Harvey, the conversion took place in 620. According to others, in 740. So between 620 and 740. King Joseph, in his letter to Hazidai ibn Shapur, give the following account. Right? It says, some centuries ago, King Bolan, that's the same person up here, this name here, that's his last name. So King Bolan reigned over the Khazar. To him, God appeared in a dream and promised him might and glory. Encouraged by this dream, Bolan went by the road of Dorian to the country of Ardabil, where he gained great victory over the Arabs, the Byzantine Emperor, and the Caliph of the Ishmaelites. Sent to him envoys with presents and sages to convert him to their respective religion. Bolin, the king of the Khazar, invited also wise men of Israel. These are the black Jews then, right? and proceeded to examine them all, as each of the champions believed his religion to be the best. Bolin separately questioned the Mohammedans and the Christians. So remember, these are new Christians, right? Or these are the Christians that expel and force converted the Israelites into this new religion. So this Khazar king, Bolan, is questioning the Mohammedans and the Christians as to which of the other two religions they consider the better. When both gave preference to that of the Jews, the king perceived that it must be the true religion. He therefore adopted it. Right? It, Harvey said. So let's go down here. Let's read this account of the conversion. So their converts was considered to be a legendary nature. Harvey, however, proved from the Arabic and Slovenian sources that the religious disposition at the Khazarian court is a historical fact, right? So these scholar Harvey is saying all these scholars, the Arabic people, Slovenian people, and many more, this is not disputable. These are historical fact that there were a conversion, right? And so the reason why I went here after watching the video about a true Sephardic Jew asking the question rhetorically, because he knows the answer already, but he's trying to see what these people are going to say out of their mouth, right? And we know that they're converts. And this is my last article that I will read, right? And this is taken from the Atlas Geographus, or a complete system of geography, ancient and modern, right? And this is talking about Zion, Africa, right? And let's see, this Leo that is mentioned is what Africa they call Zion right now. Is based off of this guy, Leo Scipius Africanus, when he do study, right? Leo says, we're starting here, Leo says there are other kingdoms on the southern frontier of what? Africa, and they're talking about the west coast of this country, which are inhabited by a rich, industrious, and just sort of people. This is a highlighted portion I want to get to. Judaism was the religion of the ancient Africans for a long time, right? Again, Leo Scipius Africanus knew that the Israelites, the Jews, after the second temple got destroyed, we lived in Africa, mostly all of the tribes, all over, east, west, north, and south. Whenever time there's a invasion in the north, we move further south and west, and that's how our ancestors ended up on the west coast of Africa, right? But these are all source material that I will share in further lessons. And again, I hope that you receive something from this teaching or this share of information. All praise due to our Father, our God, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, the God of Israel, Yahweh, and His Son, for His ever mercy. Yes, and His Spirit is poured out among us in these last days. O Israel, wake up, sons of Jacob, wake up. All right? And this is the main purpose of me sharing this presentation, was to show you that they know who we are. We just don't know ourselves who we are. But we're waking up in these last days. And for those who will hear, will hear. And for those who will forbear, let it be your destruction and your ruin. Wake up, Jacob, wake up. Yeah, children of Israel, blessed. Shalom.